Tiffany Justice is the executive vice president of Heritage Action. She's one of the co-founders of Moms for Liberty, and Tiffany joins us now. Hi, Tiffany.
Hey, Will. How are you doing today?
I'm good. So much has come out of Virginia, Loudoun County. So many issues that led to, for example, really the election of Glenn Youngkin as governor of Virginia. So many issues that have been a big part, for example, of Moms for Liberty and Heritage Action. And there was a shocking moment yesterday, or it was reported yesterday, that a lady, gray-haired lady, at a Winsome Sears event, she held up a sign that said, "Hey, Winsome, if trans can't use your bathroom, then blacks can't use my water fountain." Now, we reported on that pretty extensively here yesterday. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can see the shocking sign that was held up. Today, a man named Mark Brocklowski, who is a member of the vice chair for rules for Virginia Democrats, he posted the following. He said, "What happened in Arlington wasn't just about a meeting. It was about the climate Winsome Sears is creating, one where contempt is currency and neighbors are turned against each other. Abigail Spanberger is running on something stronger, a Virginia where we solve problems, not invent enemies." What he's saying, Tiffany, is that sign and that climate, well, that's Winsome Sears' fault.
Absolutely outrageous. I mean, honestly, Will, it's like a joke. When I saw that sign, I couldn't believe it. Democrats today are not progressives, as they say. I don't know what progress they're taking us to. It's the most regressive stereotypes ever that we have ever seen in the history of the United States. This idea that women shouldn't be allowed to have private spaces or play on our sports teams, that black people shouldn't be able to use public spaces freely like white people. I mean, I thought Brown versus Board of Education, desegregation in public spaces, and yet here we are with Democrats holding up a sign like that. It's just insulting. And when you look at what a leader Winsome has been in her life, and now as lieutenant governor running for governor, the idea that this is somehow her fault is a joke.
Yeah, she's a military veteran. It's really ugly. It's just really, I know we talk about all the things, and we played sound today from the summer meeting of the Democratic National Committee with things like land acknowledgments and dismissing the concerns of Americans when it comes to crime. And that's all to service, or illustrate, hey, look how out of touch these people are. But it really also is just so ugly. There was this video, Tiffany, yesterday from a pride parade in Canada. Now, it's Canada, okay, Ottawa. And the pride parade physically ran into some type of Palestinian parade, and they had a confrontation, and it was tense, and the pride parade got canceled because the Palestinians were like, no, we're here to. It's not even about the fact that the Palestinians almost certainly were against everything that is stood for by the people in that pride parade, but more about like, my issue is more important than your issue, and it just gets also ugly.
They normally come together. That's how you get Queers for Palestine. I remember I was doing an interview with Al Jazeera once, and they were giving us a hard time about a lot of the pornographic books that were in the libraries. There was a lot of sexual orientation being covered in the books as young as kindergarten. I didn't care whether it was straight or gay sexual orientation. It was just the fact that adults were talking to kids about sex. And the guy from Al Jazeera was giving me a hard time about some of our concerns. And I looked at him and I said, so if you're gay in Qatar, you'll be killed. You can't, this is where you're stationed. He actually ended the interview at that point. But what we've seen across the United States is the fact that the issue is never the issue. Yeah, he ended the interview. He was very mad at me. The issue is never the issue with these people. The issue is always the revolution. And I think it's been shocking for Americans to see what's been happening on the college campuses, the anti-Israel sentiment. A lot of these young people, they don't know any of the answers to any of the questions about the fight in Israel or Gaza, what the river to the sea, what that actually means. They just know that they're standing against the United States, or would they see that as something that's virtuous to do? What's happening in Virginia is really shocking. Glenn Youngkin won an election, as you said, over what happened. Tanner Cross, that teacher, if you remember, who got up and said, I'm not going to use the wrong pronouns for students in my classroom. Scott Smith, who we all remember was arrested after his daughter was raped by a student who thought that they were transgender in the bathroom. So Glenn Youngkin did win that election. Now we have Winsome Sears running, and it's like Virginians have forgotten where they were only a few years ago. And as I know you've talked about before, you have situations still still in Virginia, where the Department of Education is going to be withholding funding because of Title IX regulations. Boys who can't have private spaces now. There was a girl in their bathroom filming them. So it just feels like this is America's being tested again. Virginia is being tested, and it's going to be very important for those Trump voters that came out, that voted for Glenn Youngkin, that voted for Trump, to come out in this election and show the Democrats that this is not the way forward in America.
Yeah, Virginia is a mystery to me, Tiffany. Like, here we have, I mean, a quasi-Southern state, meaning conservative in its culture. And I know it's purple. I know that it votes both ways. But the stories that come out of Virginia feel like the stories that should be coming out of San Francisco. The stories that come out of Loudoun County feel like the stories that should be coming out of Seattle. And it's kind of hard for me to wrap my mind around what's going on in Virginia. You just referenced this, by the way. I think you did. Virginia Attorney General Jason Miyares, he is going after Roanoke College for a violation of the Virginia Human Rights Act because they have retaliated against an NCAA swimmer for vocally defending their right to a female-only swim team. I'm going to read from the document here. You can see it if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook. I'll read, the college's policies forces women participating in sex-separated sports to compete against individuals with the biological advantages of male puberty, and it deprives those women of accommodations, advantages, and privileges made to others on the basis of sex. The Virginia Human Rights Act requires that biological males be excluded from competitive women's sports at the collegiate level. And then finally, this office finds sufficient evidence to support reasonable cause that Roanoke College retaliated against female swimmers by rejecting them from the May term travel courses for speaking out against the college's discriminatory policies. So it's like, okay, voters have their say. Youngkin has his laws. But these people in Loudoun County or Roanoke colleges, they're committed to this insanity.
They are committed to the insanity, and apparently they didn't pay attention to what happened with University of Pennsylvania, where they actually had to issue an apology to all of the girls that they forced to be in the locker room with William Thomas and to compete against him. Paula Scanlon, I'm sure you've spoken to before, talked about the embarrassment of having to be in a locker room and change in front of a man. Apparently Roanoke College hasn't gotten the message yet. I'm not sure how many universities are going to have to go down this same path, but the message is clear. Americans don't want this. So we keep asking ourselves, and maybe you have the answer, why do Democrats keep pushing these woke ideologies on Americans? And it's going to be very important, again, that we stand up and go and have our voices heard at the ballot box so that they know and hear us, that this isn't going to fly in our states.
So I'm going to try to answer that question. I think the Democrats are driven by two guiding lights, two psychological motivations, both grounded in their own individual identity. One is simple. It's simply a reaction to Donald Trump. If Donald Trump is for peace, then I am for war. If Donald Trump is for order, then I am for crime. Regardless of the position and regardless of hypocrisy or past positions held, you have to be in opposition to Donald Trump. And you believe, or at least you give voice to the belief, that you think he is the reincarnation of Hitler, that you believe he is taking us down an authoritarian state, and you are the defender of democracy. Alternatively, I think the other guiding light is, again, psychologically a self-validation, seeing the world through the lens of oppressor and oppressed, that there are always a group of people out there who are under the boot heel of a majority, even if they are the majority and it is the minority that is under the boot heel. It doesn't really matter. They believe they are the defender of the minority. It is empathetic in its appearance, but it's self-validating in its actualization. That's why it's psychologically about themselves. It makes them feel good about themselves, to be the champion of the downtrodden. And the downtrodden is a shifting thing. And the problem with this philosophy, oppressor and oppressed, lends itself to identity politics, is you have what you and I have talked about, a collision of identities. Eventually you will have a collision of identities. One day you will have the Palestinians in the Pride Parade facing off against one another in the streets. One day you will have a lady saying, black people can't drink from my white water fountain because they think they're championing the trans. And that is my best attempt at an answer, Tiffany.
I think that the real oppressed people in the United States of America right now are the children who aren't learning to read in our schools. So as we're having these conversations, as boys are going into girls' locker rooms, as kids, women are not having the ability to compete in sports, we have kids all over the United States, and Virginia is not an outlier here, but in Maryland too, some of the most woke areas of the United States are bedroom communities of Washington, D.C., and the administrative state. These kids aren't learning to read, Will. 75% of kids in America's public school systems aren't reading on grade level. And so, we look back to that sign that was held. One of the questions that I've asked is, when in the history of the United States have we seen the intentional breakdown of the family and also people intentionally not being taught how to read? And that's slavery. And that's where we're going back with our kids who are not going to have a chance in life to lead independent lives, to have jobs, to own a home, to be independent. They're going to be slaves to a government that's going to make choices for them. They won't be able to make their own choices. And so now is the time to stand up. I say to Virginia, I say to Winston, I say to Winsome Sears, I know Virginia is for lovers, they say. Virginia should be for readers. The best thing that Winsome could do, that anyone running for office right now in Virginia could do, would be to speak directly to parents who are concerned about their kids' future, that want education to get back to the basics. It's what won Glenn Youngkin in that election. And I really believe if Winsome can motivate the parents to get out there and vote for her, if we can get back to the basics in Virginia education, then we can make Virginia great again.
All right. Virginia's for lovers. Virginia needs to get its head on straight, though, be for thinkers as well, and be for readers, to your point, and start getting their act together, because the fight is not done, clearly, with just the election of Glenn Youngkin. All right. Tiffany Justice, she is the Executive Vice President of Heritage Action, and we love having you on the show today. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you. Get out there and vote.